I've addressed this before, but we're going to do it again. Always update your resume. Sitting there thinking, you maybe saw this post, excuse me, on my social media, particularly on Twitter. And I brought up how, for whatever reason, in the American space, and I think that speaks more to the cultural kind of problem here, the dumbing down of folks, their inability to focus, the inability to actually sit there and actually assess something, I think is very apparent in a lot of people, right? And I think how the books are being created these days in the American comic book sense kind of speaks to that. But I brought up how they can have, the Japanese have somehow figured out how to have, even under one brand, right? There's a plenty of different mangas and animes, but plenty of different mangas. And hilariously enough, under that brand and their little universe that character is in, they can, or that book is based upon, they could come up with hundreds of unique characters, right? I mean, I'm talking literal. You talk about One Piece, you're talking going into maybe 1,000. But you're talking hundreds of characters that are all unique in their own sense, despite similarities here and there, but they're all unique characters with their own unique backgrounds, power sets, all of that, okay, for the most part. They can do that, yet for whatever reason, when you get something that's long-standing in America comic book culture, you have to accept and embrace 25 different versions of the same exact character, right? And to that I ask why. I do think that does speak to why, unlike with manga and anime, they both sell each other, right? America, with the big two, more so what we're talking about, that's not how it works. But with them, anime can sell a manga can sell an anime. It's the complete opposite with Marvel and DC. Marvel can have a $1 billion movie and that will never translate to sales. But I do think some of this speaks to that. It's that they're two different audiences that they've created, and partially is because they've cheapened their brand so much that readers, actual comic book readers and enthusiasts, not tourists, lifers, aren't interested in this. You've rebooted your universe, or there's 17 different versions of this character running around, and it's boring. And one of those things that a lot of people lead with when you talk about that is this whole mantle argument. How many times you've heard someone say, "Oh, it's a mantle. It's a mantle. It's a mantle. It's a mantle." They say, when you say, "Yeah, I'm not really interested in, I don't know, race swap version of this, gender swap version of that, new version of the same character. I'm not interested." It's a mantle. And what it does is it completely ignores how most of these characters were created. Now, there are some exceptions. I want to be clear. Characters that were, when they were initially brought into their universe, the whole idea was that it was meant to kind of be exactly that. However, that's not that widespread. In fact, it's closer to being non-existent than it is to being widespread. With the reintroduction of the new, even though it wasn't even the first, I can't even count this because he wasn't the first Green Lantern, but with the addition of Hal Jordan, that introduced the Space Police, basically, in having all these Guardians and different Green Lanterns. So you knew that there was going to be multiple ones, right? But for the most part, you look at most prominent characters, they were never created as a mantle. That is just some rewrite, retcon bullshit that, because they're obsessed with reimaginings and they want excuses to be able to capitalize off the successful brand, but yes, rehash it. That's what you got. To sit up here and call something like Spider-Man, I'm going to be blunt as I possibly can. To sit up here and call something like Spider-Man a mantle is fucking retarded. It's retarded. It makes no sense. Spider-Man, considering his backstory, and this is what he called it, even in the Ultimate Comics, year 2000. Peter Parker specifically said he was a one-of-a-kind situation because he got bit by a one-of-a-kind spider. What are the odds? Walking in, radiation experiment or whatever. Spider gets in the middle of that. Spider then turns around and bites Peter Parker. Peter Parker now has Spider-like fucking powers. What are the odds of that happening to someone else, right? In the first place. It was his mind, his scientific mind. Yeah, I know he's doing the whole wrestling thing to try to get money and shit. But it was his scientific mind creating a suit. First of all, figuring out what happened. That was all up here. Creating a suit. That was all him, right? That was something unique for him. That was unique for his experience. To sit up here and say that's a mantle is nonsense. It was never created to be that. It only turned into that because you realize Spider-Man, he's one of your most popular heroes, and now you want multiple versions of him. So you get Miles Morales, everybody's favorite tokenized character, who has the same goddamn backstory that Peter Parker had in the Ultimate Comics, the same exact one. Oh, Norman Osborn. Studying with this Oz formula into this into this spider, right? Spider somehow gets out, escapes, bites a person. That person becomes a Spider-Man. Literally the same thing happened to Miles Morales. What are the odds? That's nonsense. It doesn't even make sense. They didn't even try to make it sense. They said, yo, we just gonna have the same fucking thing happen. The one of a kind thing, which was meant to be unique initially, that one of a kind thing, now we're gonna turn it into this. The mantle argument is just something that people want to fall back on because I think it's for two different reasons. One, they're not even knowledgeable on this stuff and they want to embrace it. Like I've said, people like the idea of Miles Morales. They don't like Miles Morales because if they liked Miles Morales, they buy Miles Morales' books. Yet somehow, when we had like that accurate data going back like maybe like in March of last year, February of last year, he had like the 70th top selling book. His 15th and 16th issue. Nobody was buying that dumb shit. Nobody. They like the idea of Miles Morales. They don't like the character in Miles Morales. And to be fair, there's nothing out of him that we haven't seen really from Peter Parker or a version of Peter Parker or another copy of Peter Parker. Miles isn't even the first tokenized Spider-Man. They like the idea of him. And it doesn't require them to have any knowledge base. Everybody knows who Spider-Man is, what he is. To them, they don't understand the character, though. They don't understand why Peter Parker is Spider-Man because they haven't read any book. All they know is Spider-Man is a guy in a red and blue suit swinging around web slinging. That's what they think of Spider-Man, which is such a disservice to who Peter Parker is. But Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Bruce Wayne is Batman. It doesn't matter because you do all these reimaginings and be it rebooting another character. You got Tim Fox of the future is Black Batman. Batman is Bruce Wayne. When Batman becomes Bruce Wayne, that's unique to his situation, unique to his experience, unique to his backstory. It ain't a mantle. You only turned it into one because you wanted an excuse. Again, because a lot of folks don't read this shit. So to them, Batman is a guy in a bat suit, not necessarily slinging, ziplining maybe around, fighting crime without powers. To them, that's Batman. No, he's much more than that. So you have that aspect of people just wanting to embrace and accept the consumers, anything it is that they put out. They want an excuse to like it. Definitely if they're not, let's say, necessarily knowledgeable on it. The other side is just pure fucking laziness. It takes a lot of work and creativity, which modern artists, or rather modern writers that are, at least the big two are hiring, don't have that talent base to even do that. They're incapable. So they have to rehash things and do stuff that had worked previously or try to reimagine in it instead of doing a completely new character. Yes, and then people say that it has to exist. Well, people wouldn't support a new character. Well, if it's dog shit, no, they wouldn't support a character. But somehow there's a new identity. People talk Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer. These are relatively recent mangas that have come out in within the last 5 years. So how on earth can they continue to pump out new properties that get embraced and loved by fanatics, shoot to the top of the charts? They also got ones that have been around forever, such as One Piece, that are still going, that have like 1,000 unique characters. And somehow they could figure it out. But in America's sense, well, we can't do it. It's a mantle. We can't do that. It's a mantle. It's a mantle. So we could just rehash what we already did. Instead of further developing, Luffy could go on all these different extravagant fucking ventures, right? Really learning about this fucking character, expanding over years. They could do that and somehow not get stale. Right? They had figured that out. They got the formula. But for whatever reason, when it comes to the big two, we have to accept the mediocre tokenization and lazy bullshit that the American big two give us. No. That's an excuse. That's an excuse. Period. It has absolutely nothing to do with any of that upon which they are talking about initially. Mantle bullshit. No, it's just laziness. That's it. That's it. And people that are maybe outside of this comic book space, maybe they know of the character. They're outside of it. So they want to embrace whatever it is that they put out there. And I guess they have this sort of identity crisis, or rather everything about them is or everything that consumes them, or they consume, I guess, the other way around. But you get what it is that I'm saying. Everything about them to them is their identity, right? So they love these knockoff versions of these characters, and they want a reason to accept it because of a mantle. Even though almost exclusively most of these prominent characters, I'm talking about the prominent characters, were never created to be a mantle. Never. It was not established when Batman was created that was going to be something that was passed to other people. It was not established when Spider-Man created Spider-Man and became Spider-Man. That was something that was going to be for other people. It was not established when Superman becomes Superman per se that was going to be something that was for other folks. Never. That was only until after the fact. That's all I'm saying. You just watched a clip from my podcast, For Canon's Sake. Catch us live at 12 p.m. throughout the week over at youtube.com/YoungRipper59 and follow us over at odyssey.com/@YoungRipper59. If you want to watch the entire video cast after the show is over, just be sure to become a member on the YouTube channel. Of course, the full audio portion of the podcast is available for free on all major digital platforms, or just visit forcanonsake.com.